Welcome to Sports Scouts. I'm Joey Goodser.
I'm Michael Rowe.
And we're recording this, our 11th episode, on Thursday, May 9th, 2019. We do not have a guest this week. It's just going to be a nice, kind of relaxing episode to kind of get your mind off of APs for a while in this busy week. As we speak, the AP Chem Finals going on below us. So good luck to all you guys. But we're going to talk Kentucky Derby, Cubs baseball, NBA basketball, and more. But first, Michael, as always, will give you some scout scores.
Yeah, so by far the biggest news in LFHS sports side of things this week is Riley Mills' big decision day this week. Of course, after a lot of waiting, the 6'5", 270-pound defensive end, a member of our LFHS class of 2020, finally announced his commitment to play football for Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Congrats, Riley, on the big commitment, and of course, congrats to the many other exciting college decisions this time of year. Also, now we'll get back to the Diamond. The boys baseball won their fourth and fifth straight win in an exciting doubleheader sweep on Senior Day Saturday against Whitney Young, improving their record to 18-6. They will enter the postseason with a 3 seed in the St. Viator sectional, and last night they got their first win against St. Viator, 15-7. Moving on to girls badminton, they won a sectional championship, Lake Forest High School's first since 1982. So congrats to them. They qualified out of 4 positions to go to state, sending six athletes. They will be at Eastern Illinois tomorrow and Saturday, so stay tuned for updates on state results by following the LFHS varsity badminton team on Instagram. Boys lacrosse beat Warren 9-6 last night and will be heading out to Loyola on Saturday morning. Moving on to the girls' side of lacrosse, they took on Warren last night as well and will be facing Carmel tomorrow. Girls soccer was out in Lake Zurich last night and will be having their senior night tomorrow against Hersey. Girls softball is up against Waukegan tonight. Boys tennis has conference this weekend at Stevenson and Vernon Hills. They will face Libertyville first tomorrow. Boys track and field has conference today at Zion Bennett, so good luck to them. Girls had their sectional at Loyola today as well, so good luck to them as well. Boys volleyball is squaring off at Libertyville tonight. Girls water polo had their sectionals yesterday at Buffalo Grove, and the boys have sectionals there tonight. We're getting to the end here. LFHS math team finished 10th in state, so congrats to them. And esports finished 3rd in state, so also big congrats to them.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of seasons coming to an end now, and so, all the awards kind of being handed out. So thanks, Michael. Those are your scout scores, and if you want more of the latest in LFHS sports, check out the latest articles, such as Ashley Buffy's quote story on what it means to be a varsity scout athlete. It was a pretty good article. Kenley Theis's coverage of badminton, Connor Clark on the Riley Mills commit, and Shaw with the article recapping baseball's senior day. He has a dugout, by the way, coming out pretty soon, so look forward to that. And more to come on the4scout.com. If you didn't hear the sport you wanted to hear or we screwed up somehow, just send in the scores and informative news to sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com. sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com, so Michael can give it a shout out. Let's move into national sports with Show Me What You Got. So to start with Show Me What You've Got, I decided to talk about kind of one of the bigger stories this week in sports. And, as we kind of previewed at last week, the Kentucky Derby was on Saturday of this past weekend. And it soon surged up the priorities as far as sports stories go once the results came through. Because what happened was, the most exciting 2 minutes in sports basically became the most exciting 26 minutes in sports after it seemed clear that Maximum Security was the winning horse this year. There was an objection by an opposing horse who thought that he was impeded, and basically the race went under review to check out Maximum Security's progress and if he impeded in front of another horse. Turns out after overtime, the steward figured out that he did, and they disqualified him from the race, making Country House a 65-1 horse. So kind of a big upset, the winner of the 2019 Kentucky Derby. This is the 145th Kentucky Derby, and this is the first time that there's ever been a winner change like this, where the first horse to cross the finish line was not the horse that ended up winning. So, a wire-to-wire winner that was not the Kentucky Derby champion this year. And so, obviously the Run for the Roses is a big race because of the Triple Crown. So people were looking forward to Maximum Security's potential for a Triple Crown, considering the number of Triple Crowns we've seen recently. But now with Country House winning, with it being a way bigger of an upset, things are less likely. So people are kind of feeling the sympathy for Maximum Security, kind of upset about the call. So big story.
It's definitely devastating for, of course, the jockey and the owner, of going from the highest of highs, just thinking that they won, because the owner, he's been going for this for a long time.
Very long time, and this was finally it.
And he thought that was it. You should have the excitement on the jockey's face and his face too. The owner, it was just, I mean, they thought they had it in the bag. I mean, and of course, I would expect that too. It's never, like you said, it never happened before. Something like this, that they would change a result to the Kentucky Derby, the biggest horse race in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel bad for them, to be honest. Good for the. I mean, I guess it was the right call, but I still feel. I mean, there's nothing that they can do about it, but I feel for them, and I just hope. I mean, now I hear that Maximum Security is not going to be racing in the Preakness, but
yeah,
that's unfortunate too. I mean, it's unfortunate all the way around. But
yeah, it really
congrats
is.
to the winner.
The way that it all played out was kind of weird. I mean, this is something that happens in horse racing all the time, but for obvious reasons and because of what the Kentucky Derby means to the sport, how much money's on the line, all of that stuff, it's never happened in this setting. And to basically get into a situation where we thought we had a clear winner, business as usual, was an exciting race, to all of a sudden now, credit to Mike Tirico. We've given credit to Jim Nance before. Here's another multi-sport announcer who had to basically fill a bunch of time before the
decision was made.
The decision was made. And I think that most people, as you said, probably agree with what the stewards said. I think that most people agree with the call. It's just the nature of what happened and the fact that it happened in the Kentucky Derby is what upsets people, especially because the horse that was impeded was not the horse that ended up winning. So meanwhile, the horse that actually ended up winning, that was, in second place and obviously was bumped up, was not affected by the whole incident that was being objected upon anyway. So it's a big story. It obviously puts a lot of insight into, more issues of how replay review is affecting sports. And we're definitely going to get more into that later on in the show. But yeah, this is a big story. The other thing too, you mentioned it, Maximum Security will not be in the Preakness in a couple weeks, which is unfortunate because I was kind of looking forward to a storyline that you generally don't see.
Right.
I was hoping for a potential rematch, and that would be kind of exciting, and that would be kind of fun. I actually think, either in the Preakness or not, they should do, and I doubt this will end up happening, unfortunately, but it would be a huge moneymaker for them to do some type of rematch in some way, because I think it's 2 minutes. People will definitely watch that.
For sure.
So I mean, it's unfortunate that wasn't going to happen because I was looking forward to an exciting storyline going into the Preakness, but that's unfortunately not going to happen. And at this point, I don't even know what's been announced lately, but I don't. Maximum Security is not going to be in the Preakness, but they up until a certain point, they didn't even know if Country House was going to be in the Preakness. Okay, I just looked it up. Yeah, Country House is not even going to be in the Preakness. So there's not even a chance at a Triple Crown. It's totally...
That's bizarre.
It's totally kind of ruined the horse racing calendar this year because, I think... I probably represent the majority of people who watch this sporting event in that I watch the Derby and then I watch the Preakness, and I do not watch the Belmont unless there's a chance at a Triple Crown, unless the same horse has won both races. So I kind of go by the results. So, I love the Preakness for its own traditions, but if there's no chance at a Triple Crown, I don't even know how drawn I'm going to be to watching it, which is unfortunate. So it's just totally affected the sport, and it's been, a huge conversation. So, Michael, what's your show me what you got?
Yeah, so mine this week is going to be, after last night's loss, I want to first congratulate, I guess, the Milwaukee Bucks after being down 0-1 in the semifinals for the Eastern Conference, winning 4 in a row and knocking out the Celtics. Congratulations to them. They'll face the winner of the Raptors 76ers series, as the Raptors are up 3-2 right now. So I think they play tonight again. So that series could come to an end tonight. But I want to get to Kyrie Irving real fast. Going 6 for 21. Shooting, it's 28, I think, and a half percent. So that's definitely not what Kyrie Irving was expecting. And he's been really bad this whole series, more or less.
For
He
sure.
scored 29, I think, game 2. But besides that, it's just been a nightmare for him and the team. And I just think that going into the season, the expectations last year and then this year were so high for Boston, but they really have not lived up to the hype at all. And Kyrie decided, I remember in October, he was saying that Boston was the place that he wanted to be, sign an extension after, because he's going to be a free agent this year. That's why I bring it up, because that might have been the last game he played in the Celtics uniform. But he said in October that he wanted to re-sign with the Celtics, but now he said that he pledged to re-sign with them, but then he also mentioned in a press conference before the start of the year saying how if he was to go to free agency, the team like the Knicks, being from Jersey, would be the team that he would possibly want to go to. Of course, at the time, he was saying Kristaps Porzingis was a great young core there, but of course now he's gone. But but still, they would welcome with open arms in New York for the Knicks. But I'm just interested to see now what will unfold for him, and I don't think that Boston will be where he returns to, and I just think that he could return home, I guess, for him. For the Knicks, but it'll be interesting to see for him and then Kevin Durant as well, if he's been mentioned too to head out of Golden State and go to New York to play for the Knicks. So it'll be interesting to see what unfolds at the end of this season, as the NBA offseason is always pretty entertaining to see where the guys go nowadays. But it'll be it was definitely a disappointing series for them and the Celtics after getting off to a 1-0 series lead, but more or less it was just disappointing for Kyrie.
For sure.
I think that's more the storyline of the series.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. For me, I've of course mentioned your classic kind of core NBA teams. Obviously, the Boston Celtics are one of them, and considering that they had a lot of opportunity at some serious playoff contention, I was looking forward to something coming out of them, and that really doesn't seem to be happening, which is kind of unfortunate because, it's cool to see the teams that are historically good in the NBA to be good
like
teams. That's helpful for the sport. And like the Lakers, of course. And it was kind of fun to see a potential, Lakers, Celtics, uprising again, where now we're going to all of a sudden have another kind of era of them meeting in the finals, because that's by far, I think, one of the, not one of the best rivalry in sports necessarily, but one of the most dominant in their respective sport.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the exact percentage now is, but for a long time historically, like about half of all of the NBA champions all time were either the Celtics or the Lakers. That's just how dominant both of those teams were, and it included many, many years of bumping heads in certain eras. And so it was fun to potentially see that happen again, but it's obviously falling apart for many reasons. So it's unfortunate. And
Lakers can't seem to find a coach either.
Right, that's
Tyler
the other issue.
taking himself out of the
and
contention
we're going to
for
talk
the job,
more about
so
that pretty soon here. But
it's kind of a mess there. And of course now with the Celtics, like we said, it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds for Kyrie, the state of the Lakers too, like we said, and then for the Celtics, of course, themselves. So it'll be there's a lot of
it's
stuff
a
that's gonna
weird
happen.
time in the Celtics-Lakers rivalry, that's for sure. Okay, I think we should probably just move on to news. And starting today with news, the Chicago Cubs are on a continuing high point in the season so far right now with the recent surge up the NL Central standings. Major League best 18-5 since April 11th, and a run differential that tops the league right now, even when compared to teams that have played 2 or more games than they have, which is awesome. Crazy moments this year like the recent Chris Bryant and Jason Hayward walk-offs, the Jason Hayward walk-off being just last night, and Kyle Hendricks' Maddox-esque 81-pitch complete game recently. These exciting moments have built up among Northsiders, but of course, we're Cubs fans. We always want to be cautious about our optimism. So, Michael, just how excited should we be about the Cubbies right now?
I think offensively and the starting pitching staff, we should be ecstatic right now. The way the Chris Bryant has came back for the Cubs after struggling so much the first couple weeks of the year, he's been so locked in these last couple weeks rather, and it just he kind of showed the whole, I guess, America on Sunday Night Baseball that he was back after hitting that grand. I know the game was out of reach already.
Right, the Grand Slam was big too.
He just cemented himself that he's saying I'm back. He's been quiet all year long. He never really made too much of a scene that's saying I was the MVP. I'm gonna be so great. But now he's been quiet all year long. But that was the moment for him to get over the hump, kind of a slump that he had earlier in the year. but he's put that behind him. And same with the rest of the Cubs. I mean, that goes for the pitching staff after starting off slow, for the bullpen too. The bullpen, I believe, has been the best in the, I think, either nationally, I think it might be the whole MLB since the last month. I saw their ERAs is almost like a full run better than the second best team. So they don't have that guy in the bullpen that's a lockdown. Craig Kimbrel, I guess, that is still out there. But a guy like him that could, Andrew Miller, one of those kind of guys that can just shut a team down, like Josh Hader as well. Kind of like those kind of guys. But they have Joe Maddon's been using what he's got, and it's been like yesterday he called in Kyle Ryan, who they called up from AAA earlier in the year. He's been phenomenal for them, but Joe Maddon's just been toying around with whatever he's had, and he put in Steve Cishek. He got the save for them, or he didn't get the save. Carl Edwards got the win for them because the game was tied going into the 11th inning, but rather Steve he held the game going into extra innings. I meant, but that was phenomenal for them, and the bullpen's really stepped up. Getting Carl Edwards back too from AAA. He had his early season struggles, so they're really starting to put the whole thing together here, and it's been great for the pitching staff too. Like we said, Kyle Hendricks has been phenomenal. Jose Quintana's really stepped up his game, and Cole Hamels, John Lester, they've been phenomenal their whole career, and they just keep it going another year. So it's been great to see. It's still some question marks in the bullpen, but give credit to Joe Maddon especially for, like I said, just putting together what a bullpen that they gave him and just making the best of it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really, really scared to say this, but I just keep thinking it, and it's starting to undeniably become true after all these exciting wins and kind of all these different players stepping up for their kind of hero role in every single game. But this is really, really reminding me of 2016, like scarily so reminding me of 2016. Now, the things that are a little different is I feel like Joe Maddon deserves more credit than he did in 2016. Because he has a bunch of broken parts in the bullpen, and he's kind of made the absolute best of it, as you said. And so if they can keep playing as well as they're playing right now, I think it's undeniable that they will make that they can win this division. They can make a deep run in October. I would say that if they play like this, I think you could almost put an NLCS appearance in the bag, and they'll have a chance at a pennant. And the question is just, do they keep this up? And that's obviously what, it is a great
May. Division too.
We have a long time. It is only May. We have an entire summer ahead of us of baseball. So lots of things could happen between now and then. But as the things are looking right now, it's really, really exciting, and it's really fun to see some good baseball in Chicago again. So
yeah,
that's good stuff.
Like you said, it's only May right now, but also the division we know is going to be down to the wire. Whether or not, depending on what month it is, it's going to be down to the wire. We know, right, with the Brewers and the Cardinals, of course, too, possibly postseason teams as well. Brewers NLCS appearance last year, so they're definitely, the Cardinals have been great, seemingly every year. But I think this year, like you said, kind of showing some signs of 2016. I think that this year would be even more sweeter to get to the NLCS or the World Series, because based on what the offseason was, Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer didn't seem to make any moves at all, and that's the truth. They
would be good reassurance of
and they've been more hungry this year than
what the Cubs are.
I think they ever have been, because 2016 it was just getting there and getting it done. But now, after kind of falling back this last year to kind of just mediocre more or less, 95-win season should be mediocre, but for the standard that they set in Chicago, now they're back. I think
it's crazy that the Cubs have set such a high standard lately, but that's the case.
I think now that, with the pitching the way it's been, it kind of reminds me of 2016, the way the starting staff has been, knock on wood, healthy, pitching deep in the ball games, making it easy for the bullpen, and the offense has just brought their game to another level like we really haven't seen. So
yeah,
it's been great.
I kind of cringe every single time I hear her say that they remind me of 2016, because we were just talking about how bad their bullpen issues were.
That's been quite a
but
turnaround.
I just can't deny it at this point with the results that we're seeing. But it's good to see some reassurance that the Cubs are a powerful force in baseball still, and they're going to make an impact this year, because when they can put things together, they're a really, really good team.
I wonder if Picoto, whatever, they improved their win total yet from 78 wins to whatever. Maybe they improved it now, but hopefully the league starts to appreciate the Cubs and their greatness, I guess, because they kind of was kind of disappointing to see where they had them going into the season, them and other sports outlets picking them
sure.
low 80 wins total or high 70s even.
Yeah.
So they really have, I guess, cemented themselves as a real contender, and they've kind of rode off all the criticism already after a slow start.
Currently, they stand at first in the NL Central. The Brewers are a half game back in second place. The Cardinals have dropped to third. That's kind of fun. And then, they're in the middle of their home stretch right now, and they basically got a game every day. So it's a fun time for them to be on a streak. So that's
back-to-back walk-off wins. So
they can't get much better than that. And I haven't heard Wrigley that loud in a while. So that's exciting. I think we should probably move on to our next story.
So we're with the basketball again. So, of course, LeBron James can't continue to live life without getting into the sports news. Rumors are flying around from Stephen A. Smith that those close to the Lakers owner, Jeannie Buss, are imploring her to trade him. And meanwhile, the coaching searches are active, and LeBron wants to stay away from that. However, recent rumors are boiling that suggest former Timberwolves and, of course, Chicago Bulls head coach Tom Thibodeau may end up on the coaching staff in L.A. Joey, what would you think, or would this hire make sense, and what do you think of this whole, LeBron, this whole saga, more or less?
Yeah, I laughed when I saw this headline. I thought
I did too. Yeah.
I thought this was hilarious. And the reason why is because the reasons why I loved Tom Thibodeau are the reasons why I do not like LeBron. And their fit could not be more opposing. It's so funny to me because I feel like Tom Thibodeau is such a fundamentals coach. He in the teams that he coaches, he has his select amount of power. He's ultimately the guy making decisions. He's an old school coach, which, you guys know my biases on this show. I like that. That's the type of basketball that I like to see. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, we know LeBron's biggest flaw, which is LeBron cannot be coached. He views himself as the greatest basketball player of all time, and that he should just kind of do what he wants because he is such a talented athlete. And so this fit just could not make any less sense. It seems so funny to me that knowing who Tom Thibodeau is with his Bulls career and then his Timberwolves career, which is basically like a redux of the Bulls, that team was so similar. Knowing that, it just does not make any sense that Tom Thibodeau would come anywhere near LeBron. But yeah, he hasn't been anywhere near negative to it. But I just do not imagine that going anywhere positive.
I think just any coach, more or less. I think their coaching career, it just changes drastically because if you don't succeed there, you're going to be, like we saw with Luke Walton. Of course, he got another job, but I just think that if you're a coach, I would go somewhere else.
I would go somewhere else, too, because if you go to the Lakers, you have to deal with
there's so many
LeVar
factors.
Ball and LeBron James at the same time, and there's so much pressure on you, and you're under the microscope. Even when this team is not in the playoffs, we shouldn't really be talking about them. But this is a story.
And they always find their way.
So if you're a coach, I don't know why you'd want to stay in this, especially when you have absolutely no power on this team because LeBron James exists. So it just doesn't make sense to me that that a guy like Tom Thibodeau would even be considered. I think that if they should barely even hire a coach at this point. It's
have LeBron coach them, I guess.
Right. If they hire a coach, it should be someone who's willing to kind of cede at least most of his power to LeBron, which is hard to find. But if there's anyone you're not going to find it with, it's going to be Tom Thibodeau. So I don't understand why he's even being brought up in this conversation.
And of course, Magic's gone now. But I think that the problem is too, if you hire a coach and the same thing happens like it did this year, then how do you explain that to the fans? And how do you get confidence back in the fan base with having LeBron James there? That basically they think that having LeBron should be the final piece, even though they have so many holes in their roster. They just think that having LeBron will just bring them to the next level, and that has not been the case at all. So
when they're not
need
good,
a lot of changes.
I feel like he's such a big distraction because I don't know. I'm biased against him. I think that he's quite almost clearly the second greatest basketball player of all time. But the reason why I think he, as of now, doesn't come close to number one being, of course, number 23 from this place, of course, Michael Jordan. I think the reason why he doesn't come up to that level for me is like the degree of like outward self-interest that he shows sometimes when it comes to these things, and his inability to be coached. Well, meanwhile, Michael Jordan's under
ultimate team guy,
under like the ego management of Phil Jackson. When you juxtapose those two things, that's why I guess, I mean, even numbers, talent aside, the reason why I favor Michael Jordan, other than of course hometown, is because of his ability to be coached, and how LeBron James basically sees himself as the greatest player of all time, giving him the ability to bend the rules a little bit, and I don't like that personally. So
and almost seemingly trading away the whole roster at the trade deadline to try to get Anthony Davis. If you're a player, I mean, you respect his greatness. You know that LeBron he's out. He wants to win. I mean, I'm never saying that LeBron James would, not want to win a championship or something like that, or have a winning season. But like you said, the other factors of just kind of this self-arrogance.
He wants to play with.
And if you're a guy that's coming in the league or has been in the league for a couple years, I wouldn't really want to beat around a guy like that who doesn't really value his teammates, like unlike MJ, like you said, he's kind of was the ultimate team guy. Of course, like with Scottie Pippen, he kind of put him under his wing, and look where Scottie ended up too. So
So
I just think
big
that
difference.
There's a huge difference, and that's what I think that's what also he wants to consider himself the greatest of all time, but that's also what brings great distance, not just on the basketball court, but off the court too. With not being kind of a guy that's there for their teammates, and like we saw this year with Anthony Davis. So
yeah, the whole Anthony Davis thing is a bigger problem in the league. I think that LeBron epitomizes that because he's done it over the course of his career, which is there was an Onion article released like a couple months back that was basically Adam Silver announced to the NBA that all the players should just tell him where they want to play, and they'll just play there, because that's what seems to be basically happening.
Yeah,
it's people are basically picking and choosing where they want to go, and
picking their guys with them. So.
Picking their guys with them and picking their friends who they want to play with. So it's like that's happening across the league, and he kind of epitomizes that. And to see that step in the way of rebuilding one of the most important franchises in the league is just it's not a positive thing. So yeah, before we talk about this any longer, because I don't think it deserves any more minutes of our time, let's get into like real present day basketball with the Toronto Raptors and the Philadelphia 76ers going at it in the second round of the NBA playoffs. Things seem to be pretty much smooth for the Sixers earlier in the series, but then 2 wins from Toronto made recording artists and, as Tony Kornheiser said yesterday, Raptors mascot Drake smile. However, Joel Embiid is telling him to get ready for Game 7. So, Michael, how do you see this series coming to an end?
First, I wanted to say, the Lakers seem to make their way in every single podcast we have. There's some kind of controversy going on in LA.
I try to avoid it as much as possible because ESPN has things covered for us when it comes to LeBron James. Yeah. But, sometimes it's hard to ignore. I think the thing about the Thibodeau story, about this story is that it's like it's just kind of laughable, and it's such a wrong fit. It's just hilarious to me. But yeah, anyway, back to the 76ers and Raptors.
I think Joel Embiid is the 76ers more or less. If he's not clicking, then this team is going nowhere. Like we saw that guys like Jimmy Butler, they feed off Joel Embiid's success, and Marc Gasol really has been Joel's kryptonite this whole series, kind of like we saw it last year, similar to Al Horford and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But of course, it was a different story after Game 1. And this year in the same series, but I think that Joel Embiid, of course, he wasn't feeling well earlier in the series. I don't know if he still is, but Marc Gasol has been the guy that the Raptors have gone to, that he shut out Joel Embiid down, and with that, Ben Simmons has been shut down too, and like I said, Jimmy Butler can't play off that either if Joel Embiid isn't making shots. So he's so important to that team, and if he's not clicking, like I said, this team is going to be out of the playoffs after their next game. And I think after they won the Game 2, I believe, with Jimmy Butler, who had a fantastic performance, and it was an all-around performance from the whole team. I thought that the 76ers really could, of course, not only the Raptors give them a great series, but also give the Bucks a series. But now I don't see it at all. And Kawhi Leonard has taken over each game from that point on. And like I said, Marc Gasol too has been a great defender for them, not always scoring, but from the other end of the court, he's been a lockdown defender for them. And I think the Raptors win this next game. I think they have too much momentum right now to slip. and I think that they will head on to face the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I mean, I got Raptors in 7 at this point, even though I kind of have my East Coast classic teams bias toward the 76ers, and I feel like they'd be a more fun story later on in the playoffs just for them to be there. But yeah, Toronto has their classic NHL team, and unfortunately, they would have been a fun presence, but that didn't happen, which kind of goes along with their ultimate storyline, so that's kind of funny. But on the other hand, basketball, yeah, I think they're going to have the success that isn't necessarily as fun, but is, I mean, well-deserved. I think that they're going to close out this series for sure. But yeah, I think we should move on to our next series here because we're still talking basketball.
Yeah, so, of course, last night, too, we got the Rockets versus the Warriors, so we were hoping last week for the Rockets to make a series out of this after being down 2-0 in a 2-0 hole against the Golden State Warriors. Of course, the empire they have there. So, Joey, of course, now that we've seen, of course, last night they lost. Now the series the Warriors are up 3-2 again. But what do you expect from the rest of this series after the Rockets, after they tied up the series at being down 2-2, but now after losing a hard game yesterday by 5 points, 104-99? What do you think now, I guess, for the rest of the series?
This game last night was the big game for the Warriors. I feel like that the Warriors need, if they're going to close out this series, they needed a win in this Game 5. They needed the result that they got. If the Rockets would have won, I feel like it would have started to have slipped away for the Warriors. But now that they got the win, I think that the Warriors have a lot more of a handle on things. So I think that the Warriors are going to close out the series. Maybe they give up a loss on the way, but I think that they're gonna close out the series now at this point because they got the crucial win they needed in Game 5 and didn't let things slip away from them, and now they have things under control.
But also, Kevin Durant may miss Game 6, which is
there
a
is
huge
that
development.
factor, though.
But so excuse me. There's no other excuse now for the Rockets. They need it's win or go home for them in the next game. So James Harden, Eric Gordon, Chris Paul, they're going to have to take over. And now without Kevin Durant really has been the leading force for them, with Steph Curry struggling earlier in the series and still not being, of course, the same self that he was last year and in years past. But I think that this couldn't – I mean, you don't wish for injury, but this is probably the best thing that could have happened for the Houston Rockets, and they're going to need to capitalize at least Game 6. I don't know if he'll be back for Game 7, but at least for this next game. They're gonna need to, of course, it's win or go home, so they're going to have to step up their game.
For sure. Okay, I think we should move on. A little hockey to end news today. After 2 Game 7s in this round, with one of which ending in double overtime, an exciting goal to finish that off. The conference finals are set in the NHL with the Bruins and the Hurricanes in the East and the Blues and Sharks in the West, all vying for, some pretty historic Stanley Cup championships from all sides, no matter what the result would be. So, Michael, is there anything you're looking forward to in this wild Stanley Cup playoffs as it begins to close in?
I'm looking forward to – God, I can't talk today.
It's fine.
Keep on coughing, but I think the Blues, more or less, I think that they're the team that I'm most looking forward to, being how close they were these last couple years to get to where they are now. I think that they really haven't stepped up to – I guess their expectations they set for themselves until this year, but I think for them that if they can get to the Stanley Cup Finals, I think that they will. I think that St. Louis can rally behind them, and I think that'll be great for them.
Yeah. For me, I mean, obviously I'm wearing a Whalers jersey right now, so I find the Hurricanes, as I've said multiple times, to be kind of the most exciting team and most enjoyable team to look forward to. The Bruins are kind of a nice original 6 entrance in the series. The Blues are kind of cool because I feel like they're one of the more historic NHL franchises that just hasn't yet won a Stanley Cup. So that's kind of big for them.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, Hawks rivals, of course, so, maybe not going to get that much of a Chicago rooting interest, but nationally I think that they're up there for sure. San Jose Sharks just haven't broken through either. So, I mean, this is kind of a fun setup, which, was what we were fearing, was that, once we got to this point, things were going to get kind of boring, but I don't think they are, considering that you got the exciting Hurricanes, you have an original 6 team, you have the Blues, you have the Sharks. I mean, it looks pretty good.
After round 1, yeah. We thought, we were sitting here, I think a couple weeks ago, saying after all this energy after round 1, is it all going to just die off now?
Yeah,
but
for sure.
It's been able to hold itself throughout this whole Stanley Cup playoffs.
But yeah, like you said, the St. Louis Blues are a team that have a lot of history, but they never got into that next step. And I think that hopefully this is the year. They played some great hockey this whole playoffs after coming back and tying the series at 3, and then of course taking the game 2-1 against the Stars. But I think that they are a team that I'm rooting for, especially because of course with the Blackhawks I can't root for them, but I know being in St. Louis, of course, Chicago St. Louis rivalry all the time. But I think that the Blues, it would be cool for them to make the Stanley Cup Finals and possibly win. But also, I think for the Sharks too, that would be they're another team that hasn't, I guess, reached the next level, like we said. So either way, it'll be a team that from the Western Conference that can that hasn't succeeded in the past, but now they get the opportunity to, either the Blues or the Sharks. So
yeah,
that'll be great
teams that haven't really come out of the conference lately.
I think I'm losing my voice too.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna say, yeah, definitely hold it in there. We're almost there. But yeah, no guests this week. This is just a kind of casual episode here, so we're gonna move right into They Don't Scout Like This. Okay. So for They Don't Scout Like This week, we decided that considering the big story out of the Kentucky Derby this week and what it kind of has led to for the whole narrative of how replay reviews have affected all of sports really, and how they've kind of taken control in what most people believe to be a negative way. But yeah, we're going to look into that. So we're going to look at the replay systems for all 4 of the major sports, and we're going to kind of talk about them and see what's good about them and what they need to improve on. So I think that the easiest place to start, of course, is the NFL. And just to kind of go through it, basically there are the red challenge flags, of course, and the booth can, of course, call a review when necessary. But yeah, the reviews are initiated by a head coach. There's 2 per game. There's a third one that's allowed if the coach wins the first 2 challenges. And yeah, there's the replay official that can send any play after the 2-minute warning, scoring plays and turnovers under review. And basically, there's a replay, there's deliberations from the referees, they look at it, and there's a stadium replay booth. There is, there's Game Day Central, which is looking at it, and basically the review happens, and then there's a decision. There's basically the classic, if the call is too close, they go with what's on the field. If there's no indisputable evidence, they overturn. So that's kind of where things stand right now. And of course, NFL review and football review in general too has gotten mixed reviews. So Michael, what are your thoughts on the NFL when it comes to the review rules?
Yeah, so replay. I think I lost my voice from the start of the show today, but I think
it's fine.
I think that the NFL has, I guess they've kind of had to be more progressive. I think these last couple of years. Of course, after this past season with the Saints, Rams.
That's the big thing.
They had to make a decision there. After this, probably if they didn't make a change, I think New Orleans probably would have came after Roger Goodell. But I think that they have taken matters into their own hands, which is something that hasn't really been an NFL kind of motto for them. But I think that it'll be interesting to see how it works for replay on pass interference, like we talked about. But I think just moving it, that's a step in the right direction for the NFL, as they've always been a league that's taken criticism for not making the needed adjustments, just trying to stay more to the normal kind of football atmosphere, the normal kind of rule book without making changes to the modern game. But I think that was a big move for them this offseason, and of course it won't go without notice this season, and we'll see how early a call like that can be made to change a game. But it'll be interesting to see now how referees call pass interference, and I guess kind of what will unfold once they replay that, and that'll be a big change to the NFL landscape this year, and I'm excited to see it, more or less, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the general sports rule, I mean, as far as things have developed, is it's favoring offense more and more over time, and your offensive players are getting more protection. That could not be shown more than in the NFL. And considering their issues with exactly what pass interference is and exactly what a catch even is at this point, I mean, I think that when it comes to review in the NFL, things are not that favorable, and changes over time are going to have to be made, especially when it comes to long-lasting reviews that take up a ton of time, only to be overturned anyway. When, like, by definition, if you're having something under review for a very, very long period of time, then it seems like it's too close of a call to overturn at that point. If it's going to take that long, then you can't really overturn it. But then we see it overturned. It's very nonlinear as far as that goes, with the results. So that's the NFL. I'm not that favorable about the NFL, but that's going to be a pretty common pattern here. But we should move on to the NBA. They basically have their instant replay trigger where the refs will look at and review the play on the court. And generally, you're looking at last-second shots, last-second fouls, flagrant fouls, player altercations, clock malfunctions, either 2 or 3 point, field goal attempts, trying to figure out, relativity to the 3-point line, out-of-bounds plays, of course, shot clock violations, and fouls in general. So there's a bunch of grounds in which replay could be triggered. But I mean, I guess there's a little bit less coaches' control in the NBA than there is in the NFL as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, for me, I guess it's a lot of similar things with lots of timing issues and, kind of, nonlinear results. And, the big thing about basketball is the difference between the way things are called early in the game and the way things are called in crunch time when it comes to, not only on the court, but what's decided. Unfortunately, what's decided when video is looked at. So
I think that too, like you said, each sport, they all have the same similarity that time has been a big factor. Like you said, that
I think that's one of the biggest things.
I mean, I guess decisions based on if you're reviewing something for like the Derby's different, of course, because that's a whole different story.
Because it's such heavy stakes, and that's the play of the whole thing. I mean, there's no multiple plays to go over. I mean, that's
Cubs,
it.
But the Cubs game the other day, there was a play at home that I think it took like 10 minutes for them to review. It in the fourth inning. Like, I think that if you know that the call is that there's inconclusive evidence to overturn it,
and it's taking that long,
just leave it the way it is.
Exactly.
I think that all sports could, I guess, learn from that, and I think that fan feedback is all the same. That they can see on the board that something like this, either they're taking too slow on something that's obvious that should be overturned, or in the other way, if there's not enough evidence that they're taking too long just to try to find something that they can't, so just leave it the way it is.
So just leave it the way it is. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing. I think that the league that is most open to fan critiques and responses, they're gonna be the league that ends up being the most successful in this area. But yeah, I think we should probably move on to which one do we have up here now? The MLB. Yeah, we didn't do the MLB. MLB rules, replays are kind of a newer thing in the MLB. Basically, you can look at, safer out, kind of those kind of situations. I mean, yeah, you can that's basically the main thing that it's used for most of the time for, if the runner was safer out. I'm trying to think of other scenarios.
Can't replay balls and strikes, of course. But
you can't replay balls and strikes. That's kind of the big thing. You can look at home runs versus fan interference, those types of things, of course. But that's kind of an older thing. And you got in this sport, you got the 3 clear outcomes of confirmed. When a call is confirmed, that means there's clear and convincing evidence that the call in the field was correct. If it stands, then that means that there's no clear and convincing evidence, and they just go with what's on the field, which, as we said, if that's the scenario, it should take a long time to come to that conclusion, because by definition, if you're taking a long time, it should probably just stand. And then overturned requires clear and convincing evidence that the call was not correct. Manager challenges are a part of this, in which managers can look at the replay to change calls potentially. So that's kind of where things are right now.
And I just think that, like we said, kind of for each sport, if you think that there is inconclusive evidence, just leave it the way it is. Don't try to be a hero and try to change an outcome of a game or
right. I think you got to leave it on the field if it's that close.
Yeah, and that's been a problem, of course.
That was the problem with the Derby for lots of people. So
yeah, and I think that too for the NBA too. Some calls that can go either way. Of course, fouls are the big concerned that are not reviewable, of course. But fouls have been a big problem in the NBA. That of course they can. I mean, that's more in the refs' hands than anything. That they have taken heat for possibly changing outcomes to games with their calls, especially in crunch time. That is, of course, the Rockets are a team that has been
for sure
very upset about the calls that have been made. And that the start of the Warriors series, and I still are, of course, still complaining about that. But fouls have been a big problem in the NBA. Not reviewable, excuse me, but that's something that the league that needs to address. That they need to make sure that they're making the right calls. And I mean, of course, there's always going to be players that aren't going to be happy with the call, but too many in a game like that are kind of very questionable. And travel calls too. That's another big problem.
That's another big thing.
Like we
I
saw
mean, the NBA. The NBA has its own traveling
Yeah.
issue. I mean, the amount of steps that players are allowed to get is at least too much
like
in my
3,
opinion.
yeah.
It's ridiculous.
3 or
but
4.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes even
nuts.
more. It's crazy, and that's kind of bleeding into college basketball, which I don't like. But I mean, that's its own separate issue as far as replay goes. And in the NBA, and even in the MLB, the biggest issue is time, as we've said multiple times. For the MLB, by the way, each manager is allotted 1 challenge per game. That's how that works in the MLB. Additional challenges are granted only if the previous one was successful. And then from the 8th inning on, that's when the umpire crew chief is allowed to initiate their own replay review. So in crunch time, there's kind of that. It's similar to football in that way. But yeah, I think with the MLB, the biggest thing is, I guess it's kind of, I feel like the MLB is kind of, out of most of these leagues, is kind of doing the best job outside of the timing issues, I would say. I think that it's conservative in a way where the human element is left in the game, but replays are used when necessary, and generally speaking, they make sense in the flow of the game.
Yeah.
Obviously, like we said, timing's an issue with it, and they don't want to be too long in a sport where we're already trying to figure out how to keep fans watching. So there's that problem, but other than that, I think that things are pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's the MLB.
I think that, leaving the human aspect in the game has been, I think if they move to robot umpires, that I think they're going to, they will lose.
And we
that
already
human
talked about
aspect.
That's not good.
I think that putting replay in, that's the most that they should go to have technology in the game. I think the rest of it should just leave it the same. But it's been a great addition the last couple, when they brought it in, I believe 3 or 4 years ago, when it was a new addition, and they've improved each year on being faster, but that's still a problem in each sport, and the MLB especially too, as players are just standing out on the field for like tens of minutes just waiting for a call in a third inning game. Let's say the game's 10-0, but they're taking forever to make a call, and that's something that needs to change. And if it's bottom of the 9th, sure, but if, like we said, I guess we'll just wrap this up, that if it's just, don't make a random decision based on inconclusive evidence that could possibly change the outcome of the game. So if you call it on the field, like if you call an out on the field, just leave it as an out and don't try to be a hero trying to change something. So that has been,
for sure,
that's something that they need to address. But I think we'll just leave it there, I guess.
Yeah, last but not least, the NHL. The real big thing with the NHL is coaches' challenges are also more recent. They, generally these things mirror each other. But the differences are a little bit more obvious here. Basically, the main spot of review in hockey is goals. That's basically the main spot in which review is affecting the sport, is where, looking at if the puck crossed the goal line, looking at, if there was an offside, looking at if there was a kicking motion that resulted in the puck going in, all those types of situations. Goalie interference, that's also kind of a new trend that kind of has mirrored pass interference a little bit too. But yeah, in hockey, it's mainly goals, a little bit of penalty reviews, and obviously, like I said, coach challenges. So basically the coach challenge exists now. You're required to use your timeout if you use it. But yeah, the main place with the NHL is goals. I think that they do a pretty decent job. I think, though, we've obviously kept saying timing.
Yeah,
but out of all the sports, I think the NHL is actually worse in that regard. I think that the NHL takes the longest when it's unnecessary out of all these sports. While it might be the biggest problem in other sports, just comparatively, it's the worst in the NHL, which is something that they need to fix. But otherwise, I think the rules are okay. I mean, it's just a matter of consistent judgment in the future. That's really the big thing across all these. But yeah, so any other sports we should mention? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, the big four.
We kind of got the big sports. Yeah, the big four in the sports world for America. We got all those, but yep, we'll be good.
Okay.
With that. We're scouting now.
Yeah, you're scouting for sure. We got a couple calls here. Make sure, as always, send in your questions for next week at 224-544-9330. And we'll be right back with your first call after the theme song, of course. All right, guys, here is our first call.
Hey guys, long time listener, first time caller. But Derek Dietrich being a one-man electric factory and Scooter Jeanette's soon return, are the Cincinnati Reds poised to make a title run?
Ooh.
What are your thoughts?
Okay, so the Cincinnati Reds, of course, has been a hot topic with Carson Pierce. They did mention it on the show last week. I don't know if you saw that, if you ended up watching that segment.
Yep, I saw it.
Oh, you did? Yeah, so the Reds, yeah, they're kind of last in the NL Central standings right now, so that's kind of the issue.
Hey, he said,
I mean,
Dietrich himself, he's having fun at least. He's had
that's true.
the eye black mustache that was pretty hilarious, and he ended up homering. I think they off Jeff Samardzija. I think it was 4 pitches in a row. The Reds they lost the game somehow, but 4 guys, 4 pitches, all home runs, and I think that he's been kind of an energy spark for them, but of course the win total hasn't been there for them.
Yeah, and they're 7.5 games back now. But
it could change once Scooter Jeanette comes back. There is hope for them.
We said it's only May, right?
It's only May, and we've seen the Dodgers last year. They were struggling up until like June, and they ended up making the World Series last year, and they're a great team again this year. But they started off slow last year, and maybe the Reds, Peters, could be the team that starts off slow, and they could find their stride later in the season. And Derek Dietrich has definitely been a spark plug for them, and once Scooter Jeanette comes back, you never know what could happen.
Okay, let's get into our second and final call. I keep misclicking it here. There we go.
Long-time caller, first time listener.
Might be the same guy.
Chicago Cubs need to get rid of the Ricketts, banish them from Chicago, and fire Theo Epstein. Calling up the wife beater himself, Edison Russell, an absolutely disgusting move. Can we please get rid of this management system already, except for Jed Hoyer? Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, so this is a big story, a little bit of the less positive side of what's going on with the Cubs right now. Obviously, this has caused some mixed reactions, but Addison Russell was called up, and he had his first at-bat yesterday to a crowd that had quite mixed reactions. It was a mixed bag of boos and cheers. I would say the majority was boos based on what I saw.
They said 50-50,
the videos that I saw,
like
it seemed more negative than positive. And, I guess for me, the biggest thing is, I think that players deserve second chances, but I think that when something like this happens, they deserve the criticism that they're going to get, and I think Addison Russell's aware of that. And I think, I don't see why there was a mixed bag of even cheering. I don't know why you would cheer for the situation.
I would not cheer.
I don't understand why.
What good is he?
I don't understand why it's a positive thing. It's obviously a controversial move made, and I think that the people who booed have every right to do so. I think that if that's what you think, that's 100% what you should do, and I think that I think that it's healthy that and this is just me, I think that it's healthy that he gets that negative response because, he did something that was not good, obviously. And so, he's going to need to build back trust and rebuild confidence in fans and everybody in his life, really, as he kind of works his way back into things. So, I see the criticism to the Ricketts for, sending him back up. In some ways, I agree with it. I think that, a chance at redemption is something that he should have, but I don't think it should be easy. So, this reaction is something that I'm A, not surprised about, and B, totally fine with.
Yeah. But Theo keeps talking about the conditions that they put in place for him, but he hasn't released those to the public. What those are close, but either way, Addison Russell, he can't screw up again. Like we've
100%. He's on like a strict.
We've seen with Tyreek Hill again that he of course had the same kind of issue, and then of course now again that he's popped in the news for having something very similar and very disturbing in Kansas City.
For sure.
And I think that he's still on the team right now, but I think if you're the Chiefs, I would let him go. And if something like this something would flare up again with Addison Russell, you let him go. You move on from him. You don't. I think that the main part of this is you're not. It's more of the person than the baseball player. You can
right,
let
100%.
go.
That's the priority.
They're replaceable, and you always can find a better person than a guy that has a background like Addison Russell has. But I believe in giving him a second chance. But if it were to happen again, you can obviously find someone
no patience
with a better
after
character and just the same of a player. And
yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't know everything that's going on. That's the thing. If we were, then we could make a lot better of a judgment call here. What Theo and I think the records have said has been, at least in my opinion, out of all these situations, way more sensitive of the issue and way more smart about what they said. So that's good. It's just a matter of we're just going to have to see what happens, and he's obviously going to be held to a pretty high standard here. And if he falls below that standard again, then I don't think we'll see this ever happening again. So there'll always be new players to find, as you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's your scouting. Once again, call us 224-544-9330. We always need calls in the voicemail box. We look forward to them every week. Let's move into Just Wait Till Next Week. Okay, so for me, it's pretty simple. Two things I'm looking forward to. Hurricanes hockey, as I've said, I'm wearing the Whalers jersey, so, I mean, that just makes sense. And more Cubs baseball, because it's just too exciting right now, as we said.
Yeah.
I mean, Addison Russell probably puts a cloud on things, of course, and deservedly.
To add one more thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I think that just there really is no good time to call him up, because there's always going to be that back. But I think just having it the way it happened now, with the team riding so high, I think that it's more of a damp.
It's smoother than it could have been.
But
for sure.
I think it's a damp. But like you just said, I think that if the team was really struggling like they were, like starting off 2-7, it would make it much harder. I believe so. I think
he's not going to get good fan reactions when
either
he goes outside of Wrigley. That's the one thing.
That's
he got a negative reaction in Wrigley, but I think he's going to get booed way harder when the Cubs go on the road. That's not for a little bit, but
that's a great point.
It will happen.
It's gonna be a. I mean, hopefully it doesn't turn into a distraction for the Cubs, but I think that they've played in so many big games getting booed, like stuff like that, but it's a different kind of atmosphere getting booed towards a player specifically for his actions, not just booing them just because another fan base wants to win a game. So it's a different feel.
It's a way bigger thing.
Yeah, but that'll be, I guess, just wait till next week. Once they go on the next road stand, that'll be interesting to see. But for me, I'll let you finish, but for me, I'm NBA. The finals for each conference. That's what I'm looking forward to. But I'll let you finish. Sorry,
I mean, there's nothing really else I had to say. You basically covered everything. So, that's all we got today. Congrats for sticking through and listening to this whole thing. We appreciate it as always. Subscribe to listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public. Give us a positive review as always. Subscribe to watch on YouTube. We need more subscribers. Just spread the word about the show. That's really the main thing. I mean, it's. We've had fun doing this all year. I mean, we've broken past double digits and, moved to the place in AP style where you don't write out the episode numbers, but you actually type out the episode numbers as, numerals instead of like the words. So that's kind of cool. I mean, that's a lot of episodes. So we're excited about that. Of course, read the Four Scout. There are a bunch of other good articles on there we didn't already mention. Kyle Platt has won on the Kentucky Derby and all that happened. Michael, you have an article on the Dutch American Exchange Program, which I read and is awesome. And then I had a satire with Casey
that was good too.
on the NHL's presidential elections. It was fun to write, and so much more. So get ready for another week of Sports Scouts next week. In the meantime, we'll keep on scouting.
Thank you. I got my voice back.